He was a terrific athlete. He was explosively fast.
He was the Einstein of martial arts.
Bruce Lee, the world-renowned martial artist and filmmaker, passed away just before midnight.
So Bruce Lee was killed by idiosyncratic reaction to one tablet.
Yeah, sadly.
Bruce Lee, who was known to be a global icon in his days as a martial artist, left an impact that can never be forgotten on both the world of martial arts and Chinese culture. His death at a very young age left so much to be desired. Now, after 51 years, his tomb was said to have been opened, raising questions about his death and burial. Why was his tomb opened after 51 years? Join us as we uncover hidden secrets about his final resting place. Bruce Lee's early life and career. The news of Bruce Lee's opened tomb was said to have sparked a lot of reactions from all over the world, to the extent that people began to visit his tomb in remembrance of him. The tomb was said to have brought back great memories of this great martial artist. What could have prompted the opening of his tomb after a very long time? Brace up for far more exciting revelations about the reported event. Before we dive deep into the account of his opened tomb, let's take a quick look at his early life and career that led up to his fame, and why the world is so invested in news about his opened tomb. Bruce Lee, who was born on November 27, 1940, was reported to be a Hong Kong and American martial artist, filmmaker, and philosopher. He was also known to be the founder of Jeet Kune Do, a martial arts philosophy, which was formed from his experience in unarmed fighting, self-defense, as well as eclectic, Zen Buddhist and Taoist philosophies. He had a career which lasted in Hong Kong and the United States. Bruce Lee was reported to be the first global Chinese film star and one of the most influential artists in the history of filmmaking. Bruce Lee, who was known for his roles in 5 feature-length martial arts films, was recognized as the one who helped to increase the popularity of martial arts films in the 1970s and in Hong Kong. Raised in British Hong Kong, Bruce Lee was said to have been introduced to the Hong Kong film industry at a very tender age by his father. His early martial arts experience included Wing Chun, Tai Chi, and frequent street fighting.
I have several questions. What is the highest technique you hope to achieve?
To have no technique.
Very good. What are your thoughts when facing an opponent?
There is no opponent,
And why is that?
because the word I does not exist.
Bruce Lee was said to have moved to Seattle, where he registered at the University of Washington in 1961. He was reported to have started making money during this time in the United States, when he began to teach martial arts, even though he has always had the interest of having a career in acting. He was said to have operated out of his home when he started his first martial arts school. Reports have it that he added a second martial arts school in Oakland, California, which drew significant attention at the 1964 Long Beach International Karate Championships of California, which was made by demonstrations and speaking. He was later said to have moved to Los Angeles, where he taught some of his then students, which included Chuck Norris, Sharon Tate, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Cultural differences was said to have hindered him from fully expressing himself after he played Kato in The Green Hornet, which was said to have introduced him to the American audiences. After he returned to Hong Kong in 1971, Bruce Lee was said to have landed his first leading role in The Big Boss, directed by Lo Wei. A year later, he was said to have starred in Fist of Fury, in which he portrayed Chen Zhen. He was said to have written and directed a film titled The Way of the Dragon. He was also said to have starred in the U.S.-Hong Kong co-production Enter the Dragon in 1971 and The Game of Death in 1978. His Hollywood-produced films, all of which recorded great success, were said to have elevated Hong Kong martial arts films to a new level of popularity and fame, which sparked a surge of Western interests in Chinese martial arts. The direction and tone of his films, which included their fight choreography and diversification, was said to have dramatically influenced and changed martial arts films worldwide. Kung Fu films was said to have displaced the wuxia film genre fights. His fights were said to have been choreographed more realistically, discarding fantasy elements for real-world fights. His characteristics as a male lead was said to have gone from being a hero to that one that embodied the notion of masculinity. Bruce Lee was reported to have won several awards, which included the Golden Horse Awards for the Best Mandarin Film and Fist of Fury Special Jury Award in 1972, Hong Kong Film Award for Lifetime Achievement in 1994, Star of the Century Awards in 2004, the Asian Awards Founder Award in 2013, among others. His fame was said to have crossed borders beyond the European scene before his shocking demise. The truth that will be revealed next might be the most shocking revelation you have ever heard. His shocking death claims. On May 10, 1973, Bruce Lee was said to have collapsed during an automated dialogues replacement session for Enter the Dragon at Orange Sky Golden Harvest Film Studio in Hong Kong. He was reported to have suffered from epileptic seizures and headaches. He was said to have been rushed to the hospital, where the doctors diagnosed him of cerebral edema. They were said to be able to reduce the swelling through the administration of mannitol. On July 20, 1974, Bruce Lee was said to be in Hong Kong for a dinner with actor George Lazenby, with whom he was set to make a film. According to a report, Bruce Lee was said to have met with producer Raymond Chow at 2 p.m. at home to discuss the making of the film Game of Death. They were said to have worked until 4 p.m., and drove together to the home of Bruce Lee's colleague, Betty Ting Pei, a Taiwanese actress. The three of them were said to have gone over the script at Ting's home before Chow left to attend a dinner meeting. Bruce Lee was said to have taken a nap. It was reported that Bruce Lee was also expected to show up at the dinner but didn't show up. Having waited for a while, Chow decided to check up on Bruce Lee, but he was unable to wake Lee up. A doctor was said to have been summoned. He was reported to have spent 10 minutes attempting to revive Bruce Lee before he sent him by an ambulance to Queen Elizabeth's Hospital.
He got to the hospital and I saw him laying there. And I saw them do a big injection of something right into his heart.
Bruce Lee was reported dead on arrival at the hospital. He reportedly died at the age of 32. Bruce was said to be buried on July 25, 1973 in Lakeview Cemetery in Seattle. Taki Kimura, Steve McQueen, James Coburn, Dan Inosanto, Peter Chin, and Bruce Lee's brother Robert were all reported to be in attendance at the burial. Several rumors were said to have circled as to the cause of Bruce Lee's death. These included rumors of a supposed curse on him and his family. According to a report of autopsy carried out on Bruce Lee, it was reported that his death was caused by cerebral edema due to a reaction to compounds that were present in the medication he was said to have used. According to the autopsy results, it was observed that Lee's brain had swollen from 1,400 to 1,575, which represents a 12.5% increase. It was reported that Lee had taken Equagesic on the day of his death, which contained both aspirin and tranquilizer meprobamate, although he was reported to have taken it many times before. Although it was initially speculated that cannabis was found in Bruce Lee's stomach, which may have contributed to his death. The moment we have been waiting for is here. Get ready for a mind-boggling revelation that will keep you at the edge of your seat. Bruce Lee's opened tomb visit and reactions. Bruce Lee's tomb, which was recently opened, has attracted lots of visitors. The martial arts icon's grave, located at Seattle, is reported to not only be a tourist attraction, but a national and global pilgrimage site. Bruce Lee, who was reported to have died aged 32, is said to be living on in many ways. Since his death, it was reported that visitors have not only come to his grave alone, but in tour groups. The cemetery manager, George Nemeth Jr., said so many people visited the grave, which led to shrubs planted around the grave to prevent visitors from trampling on the other graves in the cemetery. It was reported that even on cloudy days, the grave site is rarely without a visitor. He said that people brought blankets to cover the graves of Bruce Lee and his son, Brandon Bruce Lee, who was buried next to him. He mentioned the fact that people came with figurines, crystals, candles, flowers, oranges, notes, and money from around the world. In a recent exhibition at the Wing Luke Museum of the Asian Pacific American Experience, titled, "Do You Know Bruce?", there were said to be displays of items such as dog tags, shirts, drawings, heartfelt letters, and a first-place medal from the New Jersey Martial Arts Academy. There were also reports of a pair of nunchaku, made by Bruce Lee, who deployed them with brutal precision in his movies. There was also said to be above the offering screenplay footage of visitors to Bruce Lee's grave from far places, which included New York, Denver, Mexico, England, and Kazakhstan. It was reported that the guest book in the Lakeview Cemetery office has messages as far back as 1999. That's not all. Nurlan Atakamov from Kazakhstan said that he worked hard to save money and to spend for his trip from Kazakhstan to the USA. He said the only purpose of his trip was for him to visit Bruce Lee's grave and his sons. Martin Serrano, a Taekwondo aficionado who visited the grave from Tucson, said, "When you think of modern martial arts, the only name that comes to mind is Bruce Lee." He said he used to teach martial arts, and Bruce Lee was a big inspiration for him getting into it. Others were said to have found a connection through his family history. Heidi Martinez, another visitor, who was also said to have been trained in Taekwondo, was reported to have visited Bruce Lee's grave when she was 18. She was said to have stood at the grave on her second visit and talked about how Bruce Lee had been an inspiration for her while she was growing up. Martinez's family, who was said to have immigrated to the United States from Guatemala, was said to have seen a connection between Bruce Lee's story and her family's. Kevin Dang, another visitor to the grave, spoke highly of Bruce Lee. He recognized how Bruce Lee was able to recover from his spinal cord injury and his effort in fighting for his family. He talked about how he inspired so many martial artists and actors. Bruce Lee's shop is also taught to have been created online by some visitors who took pictures of different sides of the tomb. The online shop is said to be available at different prices, which makes Bruce Lee's graveside images a profit-making venture. Some of the images available online carried different titles like 50 years after Bruce Lee's death, Bruce Lee grave site in Seattle Lakeview, Bruce Lee's grave. A Seattle landmark, all priced at $47 each. Lee's one-inch punch. Bruce Lee's one-inch punch is the most well-known move in martial arts history. As its name suggests, the one-inch punch is a technique martial artists use to hit targets at incredibly close range. The thought that, if done right, an attacker can exert enough force to bring down his opponent makes it unique. Bruce Lee's one-inch punch gained widespread recognition as early as the 1960s, about 10 years before Lee rose to prominence as a global martial arts celebrity. Lee became famous when he demonstrated it at the Beach Karate National Championship. At the time, the martial arts community took notice of him widely. Interest in Lee's one-inch punch increased dramatically as his notoriety increased. Although Lee made the move so famous that many renowned martial artists from different kung fu forms now utilize it, Lee remains the most well-known practitioner of the technique. Keep watching. The story is just getting interesting. Lee did not come up with the one-inch punch suddenly in 1964. It is based on Chinese martial arts in general and the instruction he received as a teenager. Lee's martial arts expertise began in the 1950s when he trained under Wing Chun Grandmaster Wing Chun, who laid the groundwork for Lee's form of Kung Fu, Jeet Kune Do. The one-inch punch's tenets derive from its theory, since Wing Chun is a fighting style for close quarters. Lee was already acquainted with techniques designed for close quarters combat because of his training in Wing Chun. Before the one-inch punch was publicly unveiled, Bruce Lee's pupil, James DeMille, provided insight into Lee's development method. He claimed that Lee developed an enhanced version of an already known Wing Chun move. Lee attempted to shorten the technique by experimenting with various stances and angles, since he thought it would be more effective if performed from a closer range. Eventually, they found a combination that worked. Lee demonstrated its power once by throwing someone 16 feet back and landing them squarely in a chair. Lee's accuracy, instant execution, speed, a crucial attribute for which the actor is currently well known, and the precise angle at which he accomplished it are all responsible for his accomplishments. Bruce Lee's one-inch punch is mighty because of his speed, which is also one of the reasons so few martial artists have been able to replicate it so well. Lee's father taught him the foundations of martial arts. During his teenage years, Lee got entangled in gang disputes in Hong Kong, which resulted in a lot of street battles. Lee's studies of Wing Chun had the most significant impact on his development as a martial artist. After suffering defeats at the hands of rival gang members, 16-year-old Lee trained in Wing Chun under Ip Man in late 1956 and early 1957. Form practice, sticking hand drills, wooden dummy techniques, and free sparring were the main components of Ip's regular lessons. The classes followed no predetermined schedule. Between 1956 and 1958, Edward, the coach of the St. Francis Xavier's College boxing team, trained Lee in boxing. In 1958, Lee defeated Gary Elms, the defending champion, via knockout in the Hong Kong Schools Boxing Championship final. Following his relocation to the U.S., Lee was significantly impacted by heavyweight boxing champion Muhammad Ali, whose moves he observed and adopted into his style during the 1960s. Lee advocated mixed martial arts training and was especially interested in grappling. In addition to Jean Labelle, Lee received instruction from several judo practitioners in Seattle and California, including Fred Sato, Jesse Glover, Taki Kimura, Hayward Nishioka, and Wally J. He studied as much as he taught, and many of his early pupils were skilled in judo and other martial arts. On the set of The Green Hornet, Lee became friends with Labelle and offered to teach him striking arts in exchange for learning grappling tactics. Lee's grappling tactics. Prominent grapplers Lou Thez and Ed Lewis had taught Labelle to catch wrestling, and vital judo and catch wrestling techniques can be found in Lee's Tao of Jeet Kune Do. Ji Hanjai, the Hapkido instructor, also taught him some grappling techniques. Glover claims that Lee's main observation about judo's ineffectiveness was when it came to seizing the opponent. During their first training session, Glover demonstrated an Osoto Gari for Lee, which Lee thought was a good technique, but he didn't appreciate that Glover had to cling to Lee. Lee learned how to avoid being tackled or taken to the ground by opponents while living in Seattle. Glover said that Lee would not go to the ground if he could get you standing up. Still, Lee told Labelle that he wished to incorporate judo into his fighting technique. He added judo throws, arm locks, and chokeholds to Jeet Kune Do, including the Osoto Gari. Lee showcased grappling moves in his films, including Way of the Dragon, where his character finishes his opponent Chuck Norris with a neck hold inspired by Labelle. Lee felt grappling was not very useful in action choreography because it was not visually distinctive. In addition, Lee and Han Jae trade grappling techniques in Game of Death, and Lee uses wrestling to subdue Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's character. The training regimen of the Great Gama, an Indian, not all. The Dragon Flag Bruce Lee was an extreme sportsman. According to his widow, Linda Lee, he would watch TV athletes perform full splits and never miss an opportunity to work out. Bruce's wife claimed that he would practice and hone his talents virtually every minute of the day. He knew he would need to put in a tremendous deal of practice and exercise to be the best martial artist in the world. Building up his core was Lee's top priority out of all the muscles in his body, since he felt that the stomach region, or core, is involved in practically every movement and is crucial in martial arts. Lee created what is now known as the Dragon Flag in his honor to strengthen his core. It is regarded as one of the most challenging core workouts available if you can't figure it out. Since Lee didn't play around, though Lee is said to have been able to sustain his entire body on the edge of a bench with only his shoulders touching anything, while the rest of his body remained perfectly rigid and horizontal to the ground, Stallone may have popularized the move in Rocky IV. These days, martial artists worldwide use Bruce's Dragon Flag exercises as a standard because of his ability to make martial artists understand the value of having strong core muscles. Stay tuned. The best part of the video is just around the corner. Lee's superhuman strength. Bruce Lee's sheer power is one of his accomplishments that many people fail to recognize. Although it may seem apparent that a martial artist must possess strength, most people are unaware of Bruce Lee's actual level of strength. Most people think that having very massive muscles equates to strength. Most likely, when you imagine someone who is powerful, you envision someone roughly 6 feet tall with more muscles than they could need. But Bruce Lee was a tiny man, but he possessed strength beyond the reach of most people's imaginations. Examining his training bags is a simple method to demonstrate this. Bruce practiced punching and kicking with training bags like other people do, but he would devour these packages in an instant. He would frequently pound through or rupture standard punching bags to the point where it became inconvenient for him to use them. Bruce would therefore have to locate denser, heavier sacks that would not break under the impact of his extraordinary power. Remember that a typical punching bag weighs roughly 50 kilograms. However, Bruce frequently had to utilize bags weighing more than 135 kilograms. According to reports, Bruce was able to kick these bags many feet into the air, which just served to highlight how amazing things are. Bruce could send these sacks moving, but if you tried to kick one yourself, they probably wouldn't move more than an inch or two when you made contact. Bruce Lee understood the human body like a pro. Not only could he perform an astonishingly high quantity of push-ups, but he could complete them with just one hand. He was once put through a test to determine how many push-ups he could complete. Bruce boldly decided to go further and challenged himself to perform push-ups with just 2 fingers. He accomplished more than 200 push-ups in this try. Later, he set a higher standard and accomplished at least 100 push-ups using his thumb. If that weren't enough, he frequently performed hundreds of pull-ups with just one hand. But there's still another awe-inspiring accomplishment. Bruce Lee could perform more than 1,500 consecutive push-ups without pausing if you were to judge him only on his standard form. Although that is utterly unbelievable, that is the reality. There was no man like this. That's not all. Bruce Lee enthusiasts have long known this, but those unfamiliar with martial arts might not. Bruce Lee was acclaimed as one of the world's best martial arts actors when he shot to fame in the 1960s and 1970s. But he came dangerously close to failing in the film industry. You might wonder why, since he was just too quick. Filmmakers could not capture Bruce Lee's movements in real time when they worked on The Green Hornet, one of his most well-known TV series. We now own cameras capable of recording at 30, 60, 120, or even 240 frames per second. However, most cameras in the 1960s and 70s had trouble recording film at a speed of only 24 frames per second. As a result, most of Bruce Lee's fight scenes appeared incorrectly in the film. As the filmmakers soon discovered, Bruce could throw 9 punches in a second. In addition, he had a 6-second kickoff speed. Bruce appeared motionless in numerous combat scenes because capturing his movements on a camera that could only capture 24 frames per second at most was difficult. Producers on the set then claimed that the footage they captured showed Bruce standing still as his foes descended around him. In actuality, though, his talent was too outstanding for the movies to match. The filmmakers had to ask Bruce to slow down so they could follow him properly, which helped to correct the dilemma. But even after that, his movements appear quite hazy on camera. If you enjoy watching martial arts movies, you've watched Karate Kid before. When you watch the movie again, you probably remember a scene where Daniel LaRusso practices using chopsticks to capture flies. What looks easy on the surface turns out to be quite challenging. Bruce Lee, though, would go one further. Regretfully, there was never a flawless photo of this accomplishment. However, according to reports, Bruce Lee would throw pieces of rice into the air and use chopsticks to catch them. He took this action to sharpen his reflexes in the most remarkable manner imaginable. He was reportedly very expert at it, seeing the rice practically every time it was thrown into the air. His reflexes were significantly quicker than any of his rivals at the moment. And after all these years, nobody has been able to equal or exceed his achievements. It seems so complex that many people today question whether Bruce Lee was able to accomplish this accomplishment at all. However, this is simply one more instance of Bruce Lee's superhuman abilities. Jeet Kune. Bruce Lee is the creator and practitioner of Jeet Kune Do, also known as JKD. It is a hybrid martial art that translates to way of the intercepting fist in Chinese. It developed as a new school of martial arts philosophy from Lee's experiences in unarmed combat and self-defense and eclectic Zen Buddhist and Taoist beliefs. As an eclectic martial art, it relies on a fighting style heavily influenced by Wing Chun, Tai Chi, Taekwondo, boxing, fencing, and Jiu-Jitsu. Bruce Lee himself never formalized Jeet Kune Do before his death, forcing later JKD practitioners to rely upon their interpretation of the philosophy created by Bruce Lee. The central idea of Jeet Kune Do is the interception of the opponent and making corresponding responses or counterattacks that strike at incoming attacks. JKD also incorporates principles to help practitioners make instant decisions and improve the physical and mental self. The story just got much more enjoyable. 4 universal combat truths that Lee believed were self-evident and, if followed, would lead to combat success were incorporated into Jeet Kune Do. He thought that the 4 combat ranges in particular were crucial to his development as a total martial artist. Additionally, mixed martial arts are mostly tied to this principle. The intercepting idea comes from the belief held by JKD practitioners that a potent offense is always the best defense. Lee thought an opponent had to approach a target to attack them. This presented a chance to intercept that assault or motion. Intercepting physical attacks is not the only application of the interception principle. According to Lee, many nonverbals and telegraphs, subtle motions that an opponent is blind to, can be read or intercepted and utilized to one's benefit. Forming the offensive aspect of JKD, the 5 ways of attack are attacking categories that assist practitioners of Jeet Kune Do organize their fighting repertoire. The defensive part of JKD consists of the ideas of stop strikes and stop kicks, and simultaneous parrying and punching, which were taken from European fencing and Wing Chun's principle of simultaneous striking and defending. Lee adapted these ideas for unarmed combat and incorporated them into the JKD framework. Additionally, these ideas support the other interception principle. Lee said martial arts systems ought to be as adaptable as feasible. He frequently utilized the analogy of water to explain why flexibility is a valued quality in martial arts. Water has limitless flexibility. It can be seen through, yet it may also sometimes make objects invisible. It can break apart, circumnavigate obstacles, reassemble on the opposite side, or smash through obstacles. It can flow by the tiniest pebble or slowly lap at the toughest boulders to dissolve them. These are the qualities Lee thought a martial system ought to possess. Because of this rigidity, JKD students reject conventional fighting tactics, training regimens, and Confucian pedagogy in traditional kung fu schools. JKD is an incredibly flexible, dynamic idea because it is constantly changing. Bruce Lee is credited with saying, "Take what is beneficial, throw away what is useless." It is encouraged by JKD students to study every possible kind of warfare. This is thought to increase one's understanding of other combat techniques, build up one's armory, and teach one how to counter such strategies. Lee, the magician. If you've ever watched a magician up close, you've undoubtedly seen this timeless trick of taking a coin from behind someone's ear. Most magicians master this fundamental trick at some time in their careers. Unbelievably, Bruce Lee used to execute an identical feat for his followers. Bruce Lee would offer you a coin and place it in your hand rather than hiding one behind your ear. He would want you to extend your hand as far apart as possible. Bruce then had you close your palm before he could take the coin from you, detecting even the slightest movement on his part. No one could ever stop this man from taking the coin out of someone's palm because of how fast he moved, but Bruce continued to refine the trick over time, making it even more impressive. Bruce would not only take the penny before the person could close their hand, but he would also replace it with a different one. Whenever you believed the situation was under control, he would open your palm and show you that a new coin had been inserted. Imagine, please, if this man had chosen to use his abilities for evil rather than good. He would have been an expert swindler. Fortunately, Bruce made a far more honorable life choice. Lee's legacy and impact. As a pop culture hero of the 20th century who united East and West, Lee is regarded by some commentators and martial artists as the most influential martial artist of all time and time, ranking Lee among the top 100 significant individuals of the 20th century. Lee has been the subject of several biographies. More than 4 million copies of a biography had been sold by 1988. Mixed martial arts, or MMA, is a combat sport inspired by Jeet Kune Do, a hybrid martial arts ideology developed by Bruce Lee that draws from several combat techniques. Bruce Lee popularized the idea of mixed martial arts in the West with his Jeet Kune Do system. According to Lee's beliefs, the most excellent combatant can change with the times, be unstructured, take on a unique style, and disregard established norms. Many people's interest in martial arts can be mainly attributed to Lee. Among them are several combat sports fighters who cite Lee as an inspiration. Boxing great Sugar Ray Leonard claimed he learned how to perfect his jab from watching Lee. Boxing great Manny Pacquiao likened Lee to his fighting style, and UFC champion Conor McGregor has drawn comparisons between himself and Lee, stating he thinks Lee would have won the UFC if he were still competing today. In the 1970s, Lee inspired Joe Louis and Benny Urquidez to start full-contact kickboxing events in the United States. Jun Gu Rhee, the father of American Taekwondo, acquired what he refers to as the occupancy from Lee and adapted it into his style. The heavyweight boxing champion Muhammad Ali learned the occupancy from Rhee, who later became his coach. Ali utilized this technique to submit Richard Dunn in 1975. Everyone wanted to be Bruce Lee. In the 1970s, heavyweight boxing champion Mike Tyson claimed. John Jones, the current UFC heavyweight champion, credited Lee as an inspiration. Jones is well known for often employing the oblique kick to the knee, a move made famous by Lee. The former UFC middleweight champion Anderson Silva has also mentioned Lee as an influence. Several other UFC competitors have called Lee their grandfather or godfather of mixed martial arts, and many have cited him as an inspiration. Lee is recognized for having influenced how Asians were portrayed in American movies. He disproved notions about Asian men that they are weaker than men. Tough, strong, and sexy is how University of Michigan lecturer Hye-Seung Chung described Lee's portrayal of Asian males, breaking with previous preconceptions that portrayed them as emasculated, infantile, coolies, or domestic servants. Lee's fame also created a new Asian stereotype, the martial artist. At first, audiences in North America who saw his films were primarily Hispanic, Asian, and Black.
Like when Brandon Lee died, he died on a set of a movie in a special effects scene. They shot him with a fake gun, a gun with blanks, but there was some piece of a shell or something that was still in the chamber of the gun, and that shot into him.
There aren't many people who die and are actively mourned and celebrated after more than half a century has passed, but Bruce Lee is one of such legends. While his life was one of great impact, his death is possibly one of the biggest controversies in the Hall of Fame. What do you think about Bruce Lee's open tomb story? How has it inspired you? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click on the following video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.